there's always the disparity in terms of what people find important between the men's games and the women's game. Like, like women game starts sometimes some women games start before the men. Men's like
Hmm.
dragging their feet. They're not really, trying to go whatever. Men's game come, the whole gym packed or whatever.
Packed,
How does
yeah.
that feel for you personally?
It's like that's something, it's crazy because it's something that's like you get used to when you're younger, you know what I mean? Because like when you're young, oh yeah, like girls can't this, girls whatever this, oh guys are better at this. So like once like from when you're little, like you hear stuff like that. But it is like frustrating, I think, like to see because like especially like when we're at Algoma, like there's not many people like to watch and support. So like we'd have like soccer, everyone would come out to the men's game. And it's like, you guys could have come watch our game, you know what I mean? Because like that, it makes a difference, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it
having
does.
people like noise behind you and stuff like that. Because when you play a game in an empty gym, oh my God, I don't even know how to explain to you. Like it's so like the intensity from the warm up, you could just tell is different from when the gym is full. You know what I mean?
Well,
So Humber though, like Humber, like people show out for both games because like Humber team is like we were good, so people wanted to come out
yeah,
and watch. Like Sheridan, like when we played Sheridan, I've never in my life played in a
big,
gym
yeah.
like that. Like the whole gym was sold out. There was a lineup outside for girls and guys. You know what I mean? So that was
Wow.
like it was cool to see like girls and guys like would come. Obviously, we had the 1-2 game. Like if we're playing a team that wasn't very good, like not a lot of people come out. But like the stands
Hmm.
always had people in them, and it was like the volleyball team, the soccer team. Like everyone was like there for each other. Our coach would be like, "Yo, like soccer game this weekend. We'd all go watch soccer." Or this game, like
Hmm.
I think that was like a big
Hmm.
thing at Humber is like the support like between teams and stuff. And like you go, they're like, okay,
Hmm.
if you guys come, like here's a t-shirt. Everyone gets a t-shirt. Like boom,
Hmm.
there's the stuff. So I think that's like
Hmm.
something that like surprised me when I got to Humber because especially because it was like college, right? So in my head, like everyone
Yeah,
thinks like college is such a lower
you're going
thing, but like
down.
we had
Yeah.
games, gyms packed, guys and girls.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
different for sure.
yeah, because Humber's at the end of the day, Humber's like they might be a college, so it's a step down in terms of that, but it's a big, big college. Like it's one of the biggest colleges in
Yeah.
Toronto. So it's like I
Yeah.
cannot tell you how many friends I have that went to Humber and
Mm.
all those things. How much do you also feel like in terms of just exposure in terms of the women's game like WNBA? How much do you feel like it's just like the product isn't getting the same marketing level as the men's game? Because I remember I was at the beginning of this WNBA season, the game started showing up on TSN, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, I didn't watch because I'm still kind of new to basketball. Like I've been watching for the past three,
Yeah.
4 years, so I'm still new. So I'm not gonna dive into the women's game, watch a full game. But for soccer, like I love the women's game. But yeah, so the game is on TSN now, and I'm just like, oh, this is so much more accessible for me to watch now. Like, how much do you feel it's like, yo, you need to make the game much easier for people to watch, and stuff like that?
Yeah, I feel like it's like so many things that people like will like I hear people say like, oh well, men's bat like NBA brings in more money, but it's like it's not pushed the same way as like
Mm-hmm.
WNBA is. Like even little things is like, have you ever seen the pregame outfits of like the WNBA? These girls come
No.
dressed like in hard outfits. Like if people were seeing that, they'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, that's like something little that would be like interesting to see. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
some of these girls have like crazy stories to tell, like same way like NBA players, but you don't see it unless you like really follow a WNBA page or you're like
Mm-hmm.
linked to one of these girls. So I feel like that's like definitely something that could change. Like, if you guys are pushing out WNBA content, like no one's saying like it's going to be the same or it could be the same, but it's like little things that could change perspective, especially for like younger girls. Like when I was younger playing basketball, I never watched WNBA because my parents wouldn't go put a WNBA game on the TV, you know what I mean? But like that's something that like I feel like would have changed my perspective, or like maybe my game, like if I had a WNBA player I could like model my game after. So I feel like it should be more accessible for sure. It should be pushed more. Like Bleacher Report, you don't ever see Bleacher Report like post about WNBA, and like there's
Mm-hmm.
good stuff that goes on. If you've ever watched a WNBA game, like there's good stuff that goes on, and there's good players. So it's just like it's levels, right? It really depends. Like if they want to push out the WNBA, they could, But same way,
Yeah.
it just depends on what people are seeing.
Yeah. It's really interesting because like on a previous episode, I believe we talked a little bit about this and how like WNBA women's sports, you just need like a lot of marketing And I feel like we're seeing a bit of change in that department. In terms of social media, I see more frequently on pages such as like Bleacher Report or Complex or League Fits. You see like WNBA players featured on there. A lot of it has been like a lack of like marketing. But I want to ask you, as someone who has been through like the process of like playing sports for at so many levels, like what are some other impediments that you feel like young women or young girls right now face in terms of like getting involved in sports?
I feel like it really like I think it's gotten better, like girls in sports and stuff. Like I said, like my parents are immigrants, so like when I wanted to like, oh, I really want to play basketball at like these levels, they were like, go do something else. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you
they're
know.
like,
So
relax,
I think,
relax.
yeah, they're like basketball. So like it was different. Like even when we went back to Jordan in the summer, like a couple of years, like when I was younger, my brother played with the national team, but there's no national women's team. So I think it's like it gets better, but it really is just like who's around you and what they see. Because like while one like let's say if you're like you have young girls, like one set of parents might not even like know anything about the issues, well like another set like yeah, like like go play sports, go do whatever you want. But I think it's just like levels to it, because whatever people are seeing, whatever's being pushed out. But yeah, I think it is getting better though, for sure.
And as we close this episode, I kind of want to ask you, like, I have two different questions, but first answer this one, like, who's your favorite, like, which player do you model your game after more so?
Do I model my game after? I don't think I've ever really modeled my game after like a certain player, just because of like the whole, like, I remember, actually never mind, but we had like
what was
okay, I'll tell you a story. So one of my teammates, we were like talking to our coach, and we're like, oh, like he said, we were like, oh, what player should like we model our game after? Man said, what player? What's like, what do you mean what player? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do you mean what NBA player? Like, I don't watch women's basketball, so I don't know. I'm like, hey, like we can still model like our game after a player. But I feel like it's difficult, like, because obviously men are different. But when I was younger, like I used to love watching Tony Parker. Like he was a point guard, like I used to be a point guard. So Tony Parker, my coach used to tell me I played like Tony Parker. So I used to like love to watch him. But like I always loved watching LeBron, like when I was younger. But like, what game am I modeling after LeBron James? Like he's like, you know what I mean? Like I think I just like I like to watch him, but I don't think I really like looked at a player. But I think I used to just watch highlights of like different positions, like point guard highlights, like best crossovers, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Tony Parker's floaters are much easier to do than LeBron's dunks.
Exactly. So take one way or the other. Yeah.
So when LeBron was terrorizing Toronto, you were a LeBron fan?
Hey man, listen, it's not about it was hard because like my mom is like diehard Raptors fan, and like I'd be watching the games and I'd be like cheering for LeBron, and she'd just be like, stop, like don't watch the game. I used to have to watch the game in my room, but it wasn't even like it was just so hard, I was like really enjoying it, but then same time I was like, oh, I'm kind of sad. And then they called it LeBron Toe, and I was just like, ugh.
So you low-key came up with that name on the Lowe's family. You tweeted it out. You tweeted out LeBron.
It was me.